welcome to New World Order. There's a boycott of the Dorchester Hotel because the Dorchester is owned by Brunei, and Brunei have introduced the death penalty for gay people. So that's a good idea, a boycott. That's one way to go. Another way to go would be to check in at the Dorchester and have as much gay sex as possible. Excuse me, could I get a donut with my cream tea? I think I might need to sit on one. Jeremy Corbyn was in the news, looking like the final 3 pages of a Victorian ghost story. The story was that some paras had been filmed using a picture of Jeremy Corbyn as a target. I don't think that Corbyn will be assassinated by the paras. I think if he gets elected, he'll go on a long country walk and decide to commit suicide. And then 10 years later, an inquiry will tell us that he kicked himself to death. Obviously, the paras would never use a picture of Theresa May as a target, as it would just get up her hopes of dying. I have very little sympathy for Theresa May, to be honest, because she was the architect of the hostile environment policy. Basically, she can't trust herself to wear tan tights in case she tries to deport her own legs. It's going to be weird when she leaves as well, because she's going to have to summon up some emotion. She's going to have to cry, probably. I'm not convinced that Theresa May can cry. Philip, come over here and spit in my eyes. Kick me in the shins, Philip. I need to cry. I think the only way that Theresa May can cry is by imagining a black Miss Marple. She's going to go down as one of the worst prime ministers in history. She won't get a state funeral. In fact, the way things are going, she might not get a normal funeral. She might just be bulldozed into a hole like an unwanted greyhound. She went to the EU and asked for an extension of 3 months. 3 months, like a fucking builder. I want a hard Brexit now. I want to see what life is like without antibiotics. Who? I've bitten my tongue. Goodbye. Let's have a no-deal Brexit and find out how many people with asthma are faking it. Liam Fox has said that a no-deal Brexit would be survivable, putting it in the same ballpark as a stroke. What you've got to remember about the British Cabinet is that they were forged in the public school system. They were forged in a crucible of hierarchical sodomy. The last time most of our Cabinet saw eye to eye, it was over the back of a weeping first year. As we get closer to the local elections in May, our show comes under this thing. It's called Election Purdah. It means we have to show balance. It means we have to try and do jokes about all the political parties. So imagine what my life is like at the minute. Imagine what it's like trying to write jokes about the Lib Dems. It's like writing jokes about shelving. Who could have ever imagined that Vince Cable could run the country? He can barely run his own kidneys. He'll soon be forming a coalition with the Earth. OK, let's go on with the show. Joining me tonight to discuss the week's big topics are Sara, Pascoe, Miles, Jupp and Kiri, Pritchard-McLean. Hello, welcome back, Miles.
Thank you.
What have you been up to?
I've been in a play, touring around Britain. That's very enjoyable, thank you.
Did you not go and see his play?
No, I was too busy trying to write jokes about the Lib Dems.
All right.
So, my first motion tonight is... It's time patriarchy stepped back into the shadows of power and pretended to give some authority to women. There are double standards applied to men and women. If a man sleeps with a lot of women, he's a stud. If a woman does the same thing, she's a lesbian. I do think there's a lot of fragility and a lot of insecurity to male privilege. I mean, the main refrain of British porn is, you love it, you fucking love it, you slag. And I always watch that thinking, who are you trying to convince? Do you know what I hear is, do you love it? Do you love me? Can anyone love me? Did my father love me? Joining us to discuss feminism, please welcome comedian Jen Brister. Jen, how you doing? Welcome aboard.
I'm good, Frankie.
What do you feel about the whole way feminism's going at the minute?
It's just tedious. We're having, like, the same conversation over and over again, having to explain to some men how the patriarchy benefits them and doesn't women. And it just feels like every time we get anything, even the smallest privilege, we're made to feel like we should be grateful, you know. Got the vote. No, can't touch your tits in public no more. What are you moaning about? Everything's been sort of incremental, hasn't it? Like with the Me Too movement, or if any woman gets any sort of, I don't know, senior position. But it doesn't make any actual difference to the average woman, and I think it needs to be a systemic change. And the only way to do that is if men get involved, you know. And if we were to imagine the patriarchy as a homogenous mass, we're to have some sort of self-awareness and go, yeah, if this is going to work, we're going to have to, like, level the playing field. But the patriarchy is like a toddler, isn't it? And I've got two. You know, so I know you can't reason with these people. I mean, like, if a toddler disagrees with you, what do? They, like, you know, throw themselves on the floor, you know, they scream at you, try and punch you, shit themselves.
I've never wanted to be part of the patriarchy before, but now I know you can shit yourself.
The patriarchy is also built on this premise that that men have this, I don't know, there's a sexual imperative to be dominant or to be aggressive, isn't there? And men can't fight that because it's nature, it's their natural urge, isn't it? But if that is the case, and it's hormonal and it's just a case of testosterone, then I think as women we can kill that. You know, a couple of HRT patches and a dry wank and bish bash off. You've basically dealt. It's out with it.
How much would that retail at just there? There's this thing, isn't there, Sarah, where, like, you know, what gains women do get, what small gains, just seem to be greeted with just absolute outrage and horror and backlash.
But that's what happens when what people have they consider to be taken away from them. So going for equality is difficult. And you get lots of women on this show, which means there's a huge pushback within comedy, where it's much harder to be a white man now in comedy.
It's really hard.
It's really hard.
Oral.
I've got this far without even knowing what a dry wank is.
It's so complicated. Like, I am a feminist, obviously, and I believe in equality. But if we go to war with Russia and they bring back conscription, you will find me in the kitchen keeping my mouth shut.
I genuinely find there's a real impasse when you try to say to guys, look, you know, feminism at least has a plan for you, and feminism at least includes men, and, you know, it's so hard to get them to take it on board.
I think it's more than that. It is so much about raising boys. We've got terrible things at the moment in terms of, like, the suicide rate and how much it affects men under 45. That's a feminist problem. Supporting women in every single culture in the world helps families, which helps societies.
The patriarchy also is toxic for men. It's toxic for young men, you know, because it limits men in terms of their emotions, what they're told they can and can't feel.
Yeah.
And we've got to teach young boys that all of these emotions are human, that they're not gendered, and give them a valve, because otherwise they are literally going to be on Twitter calling me a prick.
Feminism isn't exactly a new concept, and yet people still can't seem to agree on the meaning of the term. Here's Deborah Francis White on Politics Live showing great restraint while eloquently explaining what being a feminist means.
People say that Theresa May can't be a feminist. People say that if you believe in, I don't know, tax cuts, you can't be a feminist.
May can't be a feminist. I think she isn't a feminist. Of course she could be a feminist, but she would have to change the things she was doing. Because
so
feminism isn't
is it
just
a political thing in terms of more than just believing in equality?
It's about
or is it
doing things that would close the power imbalance.
Yeah.
But the reality is that austerity, brought in by Theresa May, has made the lives of the poorest women more difficult.
This is absolutely extraordinary. If you believe that a country should live within its means, you can't believe in the concept of equal rights between men and women.
But Deborah's saying that it hit women disproportionately. That was the point.
Right, that was mainly because certain benefits went to being means tested, like child benefit, so which went to women. So rich women weren't getting money anymore. So it obviously, on an aggregate graph, looked like women were hit more.
Is that
but in the real world, not so much.
Right. What do you say?
I don't agree with anything that you've just said.
The idea that Theresa May is a feminist, oh my God, she wouldn't know what feminism was if it sat on her face.
He's got a sort of year 9 debating club sort of fascist look about him, doesn't he? And I think also, I sometimes wear a pink shirt, and I've noticed that when I do, I always start talking absolute shit.
I think it's very difficult, though, this idea that you can tell someone they're not a feminist if they say that they are. And I feel like the whole thing with the guilty feminist is that it starts with being a bad feminist. You have this thing like, oh, I'm a feminist, but, oh, I only feel sexy if I've shaved my legs, or I had a sex dream about being what's it called with those 2 other guys?
Threesome?
What?
I don't know, you're asking the only lesbian.
Frankie, what do you call it when there's 2 other guys?
Saturday. I mean, it's an interesting point, isn't it? In a way, as the problem for feminism, capitalism.
The world wasn't better for women before capitalism, and the mistake people make is thinking that this is a cultural invention. Like, capitalism didn't make women's bodies nice to look at or attractive. That's biological. Like, women have a thing in our evolution. So, you know, like other animals have sexual signaling? You know, like monkeys and stuff, they have something to show that they're in estrus. Other animals will have, like, smells in the urine or pheromones. We evolved to have concealed ovulation and have constant sexual signaling. So, quite often, the mistake we make is thinking, oh, if we just stop putting women on the front of magazines, this will improve.
So, if we made our piss stink, everything would be fine?
Yeah, that absolutely.
I'm way ahead of you on that one. I liked how high that discussion started out and then just went...
There are people who would argue in absolute opposition to her. There are strippers, for instance, that make capitalism work for them precisely because they know how to make money, because people will pay just to see their body. There's something about money which actually is very liberating, which should be part of the discussion.
I agree, because I love money. But it's so hard with what that lady's saying, because she's so, like, wise looking, and she reminds me of my little 9 in Wales, but my 9 never said anything like that. She'd say, "Dim Mandation Meddi Gwyn," which is, "I only want the white doctor," which is not as wise, is it?
One of the biggest problems facing women is the determination of some men to be objectionable. A few of the worst have even made a creepy new industry out of coaching men on how to pick up women. Here's some shaky hidden camera footage of a pick-up artist's protégés targeting women with crude chat-up techniques.
Attraction's breaking rapport, making fun of her lightly with a smile on your face so she knows it, okay? Challenging her with a smile on your face, being a bit silly, using cliches, using stereotypes. So you might say, when I think of France, I think of you. Remember, that's her favourite subject, herself. I think of you on a bicycle with a baguette under your arm. What we want is for her to be interested enough to respond.
Oh, the States. When I think of the States, I think of you in New York, California.
Yeah, Jamaican, so you like smoke the reefer. I'm guessing.
When I think of South Africa, I think of tigers and lions and that.
Wow. Because often when you meet a woman for the first time, it's difficult to convince her really quickly that you're a racist with a head injury. It's good to have a system.
It's just really, really horrible. And I feel like, I should say, as a public service announcement, if you're a man who ever approaches a woman you don't know in a public place and she kind of chats to you politely and kind of laughs a little bit, she hates you.
Maybe we should be more honest about it. So, like, instead of being like, haha, you should be like, please don't kill me.
Yeah.
And then, like, rein it in.
Yeah. Also, does that work? Has that ever worked to a single straight woman? Oh, you remind me of Swindon Roundabout, you know.
He had an air of a sort of parboiled Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
Are there sort of online tutorials and whatever that are sort of genuinely practical or whatever, and people saying, you know, just be yourself, there's probably someone at work that you get on with after a while, and, you know, you'll be sort of slowly drawn to someone. Yeah. How about just not...
Or some people are meant to be alone.
One thing's for sure, it won't be long until women realise that men serve little actual purpose. Journalist Carly Sciortino decided to talk to women who say men will soon become obsolete in the bedroom before fully immersing herself in this intimate report.
Why did you want a love doll generally.
As much as I try to have, like, fuck buddies, it can get really complicated when it comes to arranging things with fuck buddies. The male doll, being that it's a non-responsive thing, it's a fine line of comfort where I need them to be a dick.
I mean, it's an amazing time to be a necrophiliac. This has taken it to another level.
I love the way she had to, like, force him to hold her hand afterwards. So realistic. Exactly like the real thing.
Would you use it, though? Because, like, if you get exercise equipment... I worry it'd be like an exercise bike and I just hang my clothes off his erection.
Weird that she goes over to meet this one who's got this, like, massive sex doll, and then is like, can I have a go?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, does he have a permanent erection, or do you have to, like, pump it up? Do you pull it up? Do you screw it on?
You screw him on. You've got various angles.
How realistic is it? Does he fart during sex? Does he ask to do the bum on his birthday? What's it?
I feel we've covered everything there. OK, thanks to Jen. Next up, why worry about climate change when the Earth is a pointless ball of shit? People say, don't they, the best thing you can do for the planet is to become a vegan. Veganism? I don't think so. I think the best thing you can do for the planet is cannibalism. If you eat one other person, you've reduced your carbon footprint by 100%. If you really want to make a difference, eat a pilot. Joining us to discuss climate change, please welcome journalist George Monbiot. George, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Frankie.
I've been reading your stuff for a long time. Do you think we've broken the planet in?
Well, we're pretty screwed, yeah. But look, there's an interesting answer to the conundrum that you started with, because full-on climate breakdown, collapse of complex society, which, it's not inconceivable already. Most of us will be dinging it out in the chemical desert until we've eaten almost everyone, right? But a small proportion of society will be able to buy places in their security condos in Kansas. They're already selling these things for millions of pounds, where you can basically sit it out until everyone else has killed each other. Then you can emerge and repopulate the Earth, right? Now, let's just think about who the people are who are going to be able to afford these security condos, right? Donald Trump Jr., James Murdoch, Mel Gibson, Kanye West. You say the planet's a ball of shit already. So, the incentive to prevent this from happening is obvious.
Also, the incentive to go there with the shotgun while they try and get into their condos. It's pretty high.
Yeah, well, they'll have security guards, but already, and I'm not kidding here, they are starting to think along these lines. They're saying, and they're getting consultants in to advise them on this, how do we pay our security guards when money becomes worthless? They're not asking, how do we prevent the collapse of life on Earth? They're asking, what are the technical measures we need to apply to make sure that we survive and everybody else dies?
Well, I've always wondered that. How come on day 2 after the apocalypse, like, the world isn't just ruled by bodyguards, essentially, and the currency probably dry hand jobs?
I need to find out what they are. I won't be able to work.
I'll show you after the show.
There's been some very worrying stories lately. So there's a story today that a lot of the ice in the Alps is going to melt over the course of the century. I mean, it all looks pretty bad from that point of view.
I mean, we're reaching the tipping points. And the trouble is you don't know it's a tipping point until it's tipped. It could be tomorrow. Like in the Younger Dryas, 10,800 years ago, Greenland temperatures rose 10 degrees in 1 decade. 10 degrees, just like that. And you go from basically a habitable climate to an uninhabitable climate. And that could just happen.
It seems at times as if human beings are determined to destroy every other species on Earth. But not all of us are as bloodthirsty, as seen in this covertly filmed clip of one animal lover doing his bit to save a creature's life.
So I've just made it inside the factory farm. I've found where the pigs are. And just take a look for yourself. In the most cramped position. So I've just gone and rescued one. I could not leave someone there. You know, I couldn't carry them all, but I knew I could carry one. This beauty has just been rescued. So we're travelling across this field to get to my car. We're in the car now. On the way. And my fingers fall around the
See, those pigs, though, that must have been sort of like the pig equivalent of the Rapture. What did he do that was so special?
Yeah, he's the chosen one. Yeah, I love the idea. He said, I realised I couldn't carry them all. As if he perhaps arrived without a plan, maybe.
How was that ever appropriate music for abducting a pig to? Or indeed for anything?
It's like the end of like a feel-good, like, buddy movie.
Yeah.
Like Rob Schneider's going to be there with a chicken under her arm going...
To be fair to him, I have to say, I think he does a good thing, and he takes it to an animal rescue, and it has a happy life and stuff. And there's lots of people doing this now. In fact, it's become a big problem in America, where they've started to get the FBI onto people who are taking pigs out of abattoirs.
But that... FBI?
Yeah.
Isn't that overkill?
No, because it's...
They've got, like, whole rooms with pictures of what's
It's such a massive industry. They've really kind of come down on it.
One of the pigs is talking.
Right. Recently, the BBC's Blue Planet Live broadcast remarkable scenes of newly hatched baby turtles being helped into the ocean. Unfortunately, a seagull showed that humans often underestimate the horror of nature.
They're incredibly important for the health of our oceans. I hope I was allowed to help it there. But, you know, these hatchlings are going to spend at least 100 years in our oceans if all goes well. Surely it's our responsibility to safeguard their futures. Scientists cannot do this alone. This is our blue planet to fiercely protect through our actions and through making our voices heard. So we hope that we've inspired you to grab that responsibility with both hands. That's goodbye from us from the Great Barrier Reef. A big thanks to all the scientists who've helped us here. But that's not all from Blue Planet Live. It's back over to Chris.
I can't believe she went, oh, I'll touch it if I'm allowed to do that. Like she's the captain of the Starship Enterprise or something. She'd actually been better if she just fucking skimmed them into the sea.
I'd like to know what happened. She goes, anyway, back over to you, Chris. Chris Beckham was thinking, what the fuck have you done? You've stuck you on air for 90 seconds and you've killed a turtle.
Fortunately, the next generation does seem to have got the message that we're all fucked. Unfortunately, we're all fucked. But that hasn't stopped these young people protesting in central London before being patronised on Politics Live.
I think that it's really important that we make a difference now before it's too late, because if we wait too long, it's going to become an irreversible change that our generation won't be able to stop.
So Lottie Tellin is here, one of the organisers and an A-level student. You've been helped by the weather, of course. It's a glorious day out there, isn't it?
It's pretty worrying when young people abandon apathy, isn't it?
It's so sad, but it is heartening to see, like, the passion and enthusiasm from very young people. But, like, I just feel guilty because we've, like, fucked it. And we're leaving it up to people who don't even know if they need the toilet before a car journey to fix it.
What would you say people should do, George, if they can do one thing?
I mean, what we have to do is the big structural, political, economic stuff. You know, what we're being told to do is change your cotton buds. And all these sort of pathetic micro-consumerist bollocks, which just isn't going to get us anywhere. You know, there are one or two things you can do as a consumer which do make change. Switch to a plant-based diet. That's one. Big, big change, because animal farming has this massive environmental impact. Another one, stop flying. Yeah, but beyond that, actually everything we have to do is change the system. We have to overthrow this system which is eating the planet with perpetual growth. I mean, since when was GDP a sensible measure of human welfare? And yet everything that governments want to do is to try to boost GDP. Now, people like the OECD or the World Bank who say, oh, we're not asking for a lot of growth, just 3% a year. That means doubling in 24 years. Yeah, we're bursting through all the environmental boundaries and screwing the planet already. You want to double it? Double all that? Double it again? Keep doubling it? It's madness. We've got to find a better way of measuring human welfare than perpetual growth. We've got to start ramping down all fossil fuel production and leave fossil fuels in the ground. And at the same time, and this is a nice bit of it, it turns out that through massive rewilding, ecological restoration, you can draw down a load of the carbon dioxide we've already produced. Huge amounts, allowing the forests to come back, the marshes to come back, the sea floor to recover from trawling and stuff. They draw down carbon dioxide and can take us a long way towards stopping climate breakdown at the same time as stopping ecological breakdown. There's time, but we can't do it by just pissing around at the margins of the problem. We've got to go straight to the heart of capitalism and overthrow it. You said this was going to be a comedy programme?
Oh, no. No, they're used to it. You know, they're used to the calls for revolution on this show. Well, that's the end. Thanks to my guests, Sara, Pascoe, Miles, Jupp, Kiri, Pritchard-McLean, Brister and George Monbiot. But before I go, I'd like to leave you with this thought. A friend recently said to me that Biggie Smalls would have been 47 this year. And of course he wouldn't. He wouldn't have made it past the invention of stuffed crust pizza. It's easy to feel that the sort of things we say glibly have become increasingly detached from any kind of actual meaning. Many leading Conservatives have spoken this week about the need to be out of the EU before the European elections. We must leave this undemocratic institution over which we have no say before the election in which we get to have a say. We must not be allowed to have a vote because having a vote would be an insult to democracy. Linguists agree that the last words in any language that referred to anything tangible was that famous phrase, yelled in agony by Sergeant James Harrison during the Battle of the Somme. Those words were, and I quote, "Oh, fucking hell, someone's blown my legs off." As Harrison's legs whistled off into the distance, towards Belgium and technically guilty of desertion, he realised with a sigh that the word legs no longer held any meaning for him. Sergeant Harrison survived the war, but never again would he participate in the vapid pantomime of human communication. Instead, he confined himself to inane honks he made by putting his hand under his armpit and flapping his arm. His friends would try to interpret these noises, but in vain, because Harrison meant nothing by them. That loss of meaning at the Somme has never been recovered. Words are metaphors we use to convey meaning, but if we can only use them to describe a meaningless universe, they're a comparison of nothing with nothing. If I compare the Parliamentary Labour Party with a pile of dog shit, I'm not adding to the meaning of the Labour Party. In fact, I'm slightly taking away from the meaning of dog shit. We're all Sergeant James Harrison now, honking our digital armpits at each other in tweets and TED Talks, posting memes read by no one, conveying feelings we don't have about comments made by strangers on events that didn't happen, invariably while masturbating. Good night.